Brendan, how's the squad looking heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, we're obviously very determined and to produce a strong performance in terms of numbers. We've got Yang that'll be out. He have his arm in a sling for a few weeks. Obviously, had a nasty fall and slight sprain of his elbow. So yeah, but everyone else should be okay.
So potential his season may be over, hoping that he may be back before the end of the campaign.
Hopefully, yeah. I think, as I said, it's 2 weeks in a sling, and then we'll assess it from there.
Obviously, after last week's performance, you said you had to control your anger, had some strong words about the performance. What have you said to the players over the course of this week in the hope that there won't be a repeat tomorrow?
Well, it's been twofold, really. I said that, it's a result we don't expect, and it's certainly a result I can't accept as the manager here, and especially how we've done against St Johnstone and before, and knowing and seeing it from the very first minute of the game where the performance could go to. So it's not something that I can accept. But what I also said to them is that, look, for 8 months of the season, from the first day of pre-season until we get knocked out against Bayern Munich, our level has been at a really, really high level, consistent. You think some of the performances that we've had, some of the results that we've had, and there was probably only maybe 2 performances in there, Dortmund away, Rangers away. Apart from that, we've been so consistent and playing at a level. And I said it also shows we have a way to go to be to where I want us to be in terms of mindset and mentality. Because there's no doubt that the gap in the league, and also maybe a little bit of coming out of the Champions League, has just taken a slight edge off. So that's a mindset that I need to continue to work within the squad in order to improve that. It's understandable, but I also know that last year when it was tight, you've seen the edge in the team. You've seen it at the beginning of the season, the edge in the team when it was tight and everyone's starting off with 0 points, how we're able to then power away and find that consistency and quality. But I don't want that to stop. And I want us to continue with that mentality. I understand why sometimes it doesn't. But I don't forget how well they have done. But that I can't accept what that was last week.
You obviously don't want those types of performances, those types of results, but are you just hoping that can maybe prove to be the jolt that the players might need for the rest of the season to go on and really show their top level through the finish line?
Yeah, it's us. If we're going to be champions, then we want to show why we're a champion. We want to have that mentality and those strong performances. And like I say, I spoke before about sprinting over the line, and for us, it's about getting over the line. Everyone is anticipating that it will be done, but it's not done until you actually get the points. And I think part of my frustration also last week was that the opportunity to win that at home, it doesn't happen. I think the last time we were able to do that, I was lucky enough, my first time here, it was 2018. Supporters travelling all the way around the world, following us up and down the country, everywhere. And it doesn't happen often. So the chance to have the opportunity to be able to go into tomorrow's game to win the title would have been a great tonic for the supporters. However, it wasn't to be. So it's now about preparing now for the game tomorrow, putting in a strong performance, which we'll need. And then we keep collecting the points until we are a champion.
Brendan, how do you as a manager and the other coaches try and prevent players from kind of not having that same edge, that same tempo, or that disappointment from Saturday when you refer to the gap being so big? How do you make sure that doesn't happen in future?
Well, there has to be other targets. There's also a personal pride in it as well. Yeah. There's the individual performance. I also understand very well, especially at a club like this here, and for players especially coming in their first season, the emotional and physical exhaustion that takes place whenever you are the team that is pushing, not just every single day, but in every single game. That can be tiring physically and mentally, and then you get to this point of the season and maybe your form can just quite, drop off a little bit. So I understand that, but our job was in the messaging and in the observation of training and making sure that intensity is there, the mentality is there, and then you take that performance level then into training. And I've always said it, the training can't be soft and light. I always worry with players that if they don't want to work, but that's not this group. It's not this group. They want to work. They're a fantastic group of young guys who have done amazing for this club over the course of this season. They've shown they've improved, but there's just that little thing that I want us to keep building on, and that's that. It's not a winning mentality. It's just a mindset of being relentless, and that's something that we want to improve on.
Is that something you have individual conversations with players, or do you have it as collective as a group?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. You have to ensure the whole message gets to the group, and then of course then you will speak individually with players. But I think that the players understand that situation, and like I said, hopefully it'll be that little poke that's needed for us now to push on the end of the season.
Ben, how's Nicholas Coon been this week? Have you had to speak to him maybe after what happened last week? He's one of the players that obviously was at such a high level at the first half of the season, but obviously a difficult moment for him.
Yeah, it is. But Nicholas has got fantastic ability. He's a good guy, and like I said, probably one of those players coming in on the back of this is the most games he's ever played, the most intensity he's played in, the most goals he's ever scored. So it's been a really, really long season for the likes of Nick, and he's been outstanding for us. But yeah, it's just, listen, my priority is always the players. You know, my priority is always them, so I'm always there to support, to give them the little jolt when they need it, to put the arm around them and protect them when it's needed. But no, listen, he's done fantastic for us. But I want him and the others to finish the season really strong, and then they can go into the summer and feel really good about themselves.
Do you think, I know you said last week there's no excuses and all that stuff, but do you think the effects of having no winter break this year is affecting guys like yourself and other teams as well? Have we seen at this time the lack of winter break have an impact?
Well, it definitely helps if you have the ability to reset and refresh. Yeah, obviously more games, more intense games, and yeah, listen, there's no doubt. I don't want to make excuses. Of course, it was a really difficult long period for us in that sort of midwinter, and from October right through till February, so many games. But I thought the squad, we tried to manage the squad and keep the team as fresh and as fit as we can, and also the players kept themselves so fit as well, and with a great help from the medical team and the sports science team. So yeah, but you get to an end of a season. Like I said, if you're not a player that's used to it, and then of course at this stage of the season you can start to flag a wee bit. But this is where you find and get the robustness just by pushing yourself through that. And when you're a club like Celtic, that's the expectation. The expectation is this is the period in the season where you're here to win. You're here to win games and you're here to win trophies. So you can't soften up now. This is the important bit. But what I say is that these players have got us into this incredible position in the league by all the great work that they've done. So yeah, but we'll always nitpick and look where we can be better. But clearly, that freshness and yeah, everyone misses the international or the winter break. But it's not there, and it's not there next year. So we have to deal with it.
Big Chris Sutton said his comedy that maybe the January window was maybe a sign of complacency from above at the club, that maybe they thought the league was done as well. In fact, they're maybe not replacing Kyogo. Is that a fair comment, or is that?
No, I wouldn't like to say that. Listen, everyone will have an opinion on it. It was clear. I said at the time we wanted a striker, but if it didn't happen because we couldn't get the right one, then of course I was happy for Dyson to play there because he can do. But no, listen, the club and the board have been great. You look at how we've improved in the summer, improved the squad. We will look to do that again in the summer. we can't afford to be complacent. We always want to progress. We can't afford to be content. They are. My ambition and the club's ambition will be to always improve and be better, whether it's facilities, whether it's on the field, and we'll look to do that again in the summer. I sadly don't quite agree with young Chris, but but it's okay. It's opinion, and that's I can disagree.
Do you learn more about some players in defeat like that, though, and does it make you reassess some of the players who are here? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. No, there is. You're assessing every day. You're assessing every day in training. You're assessing people when they play in the Champions League, when they play against the Champions League, against the domestic. Does it mean more to them in the Champions League or in the domestic league? Here you have to cope with both. Here you have to cope with expectation, and you have to cope with being an underdog in the Champions League sometimes. It comes hand in hand. You can't be brilliant when you're an underdog, and when the expectation's there, be no good. You've got to deal with both. Guys like Cameron McGregor, James Forrest, these guys that done it for years here. They go into big games, and sometimes they're an underdog, but it means everything to them, but it doesn't change when they come at home. They deal with the expectation. So that's the level here at Celtic, and that's what you're assessing all the time.
Does that feed into the futures for some of the players potentially? Then do you see a game like last week and it maybe makes your mind up on a player in a scenario like last week?
Only if it was consistent.
Yeah.
This is I don't want to I repeat again. This team's consistency for 8 months was brilliant. So I don't want anyone to go down that route and go. I can understand, why you'd maybe have the odd off day, because they're not robots. They're absolutely not. Even though how hard they've worked and how consistent they have been for so long, would make you think they are sometimes, but they're not. But also it's just a nice little shot across the bow that if you're not quite on it, and you can't escape that comfort zone, then you'll be challenged at this level. I think it's also a great sign of how good the players have been, because if they do drop off it and aren't physical and aren't dominant, then you can lose, and you can lose to any team. And I sat here last week and it says top v bottom. It doesn't matter. Everyone is fighting for something. So and they fought. They scored the early goal, and we couldn't respond. So, good lesson for us.
Have you sensed this week a kind of extra determination for the players to answer the questions that have been asked of them?
Yeah, and I think they've repeatedly done that. I think throughout the season there's been questions asked. There's been setbacks, and we, rather than play the victim, we've tried to be the victors at the end of that. And but that's you just got to put your head down, work hard, analyse honestly what went wrong, and then and move on.
You look back at the way you won the league last season at Rugby Park, the performance that night, we were one of the best of the season. Does that make it kind of more special occasion? Is that the kind of carrot that the players have got, that they remember back to how they felt after that win? They did it in such style that's what you want to emulate again.
Yeah, I think it was a real performance that sticks in the memory. That just obviously because of the surface and everything, but the level of our game, but the level of intent in our game from the first whistle. And I think that was, and that's what I talked about previous there, the edge when we're right on our game and things were tight, and we were so good in that final run in of the season. So that performance was a real not just an indicator to win the league, but also an indicator to how you play against that man marking system from a tactical perspective. How sometimes you need to go over the press, and Big Adam was setting the game up brilliantly for us that evening. We had runners off that, and then getting into the areas, using our system so well and scoring goals with big quality. But the work rate and intensity in the team was very strong that night.
as a coach, Brendan, is this a time where you learn the most important things about some of your players, especially the ones that have been here, have only just arrived, for example, younger guys that are being exposed to Celtic for the first time?
Yeah, I just know that the first season, like for the new guys that have come into here and have done great for us, it's maybe at another club with 4 to 6 weeks to go in your season, some will be thinking about their holidays. You can't at a club like this here. The prizes are too big. It's, the focus has to be really narrowed in, and you have to be physical in your game and your work. So, but for the guys that's coming in, that's what they're learning all the time. But that's how you grow. You learn from it. Some of them have completed a first season under huge expectation, big pressures, and up until this point they have delivered. Yeah, there's been some games where it hasn't quite, like last week, but that's going to happen. It's going to happen in the season. So, but been a really, really good reaction this week in training, and now we've got to take that into the game.
See, Alan Hughes, looks like Alan Hughes been stepped down as a VAR official this week. Is that, and listen, I don't like seeing guys losing their jobs, obviously, but is that a wider level of accountability that's to be welcomed in the game in terms of that respect?
Yeah, listen, we all make mistakes. Absolutely. And I'm not sure whether that was Alan's decision or however it's come about. But I think, listen, we're all in work, we're all on a job, and if we don't do it quite to the level, we'll all be moved on. There's very few jobs that you go into and work where you won't lose your job if it's not. But I always think up here, so long as the referees are getting the support, the help, the education to develop. If it's consistent mistakes over long periods of time, and you're giving evidence to people that you're not quite seeing the game, then naturally you're not going to be in the position. It's a real difficult job and ask for the guys, but like I said, if you're making mistakes and you're not quite seeing things consistently, then that's maybe what can happen. But sure, I'm sure he'll feel free to just enjoy his life now, Alan, and he can walk into the supermarket and have no problems, I'm sure. So, but no, it's education, it's learning, it's development, and we all know we'll make mistakes.
Brendan, assuming you said earlier that you can't afford to be complacent or content where the team is, the squad is. That said, would you anticipate it being quite a busy transfer window in the summer if you want to go or continue to progress in Europe and dominate Scottish football?
Yeah, no, I think it's all about improvement. I think naturally what you have at our club, and you guys will have seen it reporting on the club over many years, there is a natural, slide of players that move out and come in every 3-4 years. So I think naturally that will happen. It's the nature of our model here, but it's also the nature of players being here and maybe either looking to move on or want to come away from the pressure that's here. Because 3-4 years of it, it's a lot of pressure. But I just think it's the natural progression for here. But we always have to be ready to replace any players that go. But obviously important for us, it's improvement. We always want to improve the team, improve the hunger in the team. That's always key, because one of the ways to succeed and guard across what I've been talking about is you need the freshness. It's either that or the manager goes. It's as simple. There's no rocket science in it. Do you know what I mean? You cannot be at a club for a long period of time with the same group of players. And likewise, the same group of players need a different voice, maybe. So it's, but at this moment, it'll be about improving the squad.
Has your thinking changed on what might have been required in the summer, Brendan, from January? Like when you looked ahead to the summer in January, has it changed since then because of the kind of slight drop off in level maybe at times?
No, I think change is needed. I think that's the point, Graham. I think that that's that freshness, that new energy coming into your squad. That sort of alleviates any of that sort of complacency. You know, we will bring players in to challenge the squad and the team for the summer. But that's natural at any team. You know, however this team does at the end of the season, come the end, we want to improve it. Because, like I said, if you just sit on that, then the team needs the competition. So either way, we will look to improve the squad.